Well, good morning or good afternoon or whatever, whenever you're going to be reading this thing. Um, my bride and I were talking and we came up with an idea. Just something to think about. I'm struck with a couple of three things whenever I think about the Bible. Um, the Bible originally was meant to be something that you listen to. Um, for over 1,000 years, it was oral tradition. And then Moses came along. The Bible didn't get in written form until the time of Moses. So for thousands of years, people heard these stories. They heard these stories of Adam and Eve. They heard these stories of Cain and Abel. They heard these stories of Noah. They heard the stories of Methuselah and Enoch. They heard the stories of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then they heard the stories of Abraham. And as the Old Testament calls him, a wandering Aramean who left his home and followed God. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew that wherever God led him, that's where he was going to go. And then Abraham becomes a great nation. And his descendants, Isaac, then Jacob and Esau. Jacob having the 12 sons. Joseph being sent down into Egypt as a slave. These stories were told over and over again. Joseph then dying, and then a Pharaoh rising up that didn't know Israel and oppressed Israel, and they became in cruel slavery for 450 years, and they cried out to God. And many of them wondered, where was God? Why isn't God listening to us? And then God raised up a deliverer. Moses. Moses. The name Moses means drawn. He was drawn out of the river, is what the name means. Fascinating name, because he also became the man that drew them out of slavery. So Moses eventually, as you know the story, kills an Egyptian because he saw him oppressing two Israelites. And then he fears for his life, so he runs away. He ends up in Midian, basically part of Saudi Arabia today. 40 years he's a shepherd. Learns a lot about being a shepherd. And one day he sees a bush burning. And he's intrigued by this. How does the bush burn and not burn up? So he approaches this bush and he hears a voice telling him, Moses, take your shoes off. This is holy ground. This is holy ground. Moses falls on his face and worships. He doesn't really quite know who he's talking to, but eventually the voice says, Moses, I am. That one simple voice, I am. I am. He was the one that made light out of darkness. He's the one that made the heavens and the earth and all that's in it. The great creator. This is the very one that is speaking to him from a bush that doesn't burn up on a mountainside in Midian. Amazing how that works. So Moses follows the Lord. If you remember the movie The Ten Commandments, Charlton Heston got the Jews free from Yul Brynner. How about that? Yeah. So it's under Moses' time that the word gets written down. But it was always something that people listened to. It was always something that people heard. It was stories that people told. In the New Testament, Paul tells Timothy, in 1 Timothy chapter 4, he says it in verse 13. He says, until I come, give attention to reading. What he's talking about is reading the scriptures. Read them. As a pastor, Paul tells Timothy as a pastor, read the scriptures to your people. Read the Bible to your people. That's what I want to do. I want to just start reading the Bible to you. And I hope you'll read along with me. Thanks.